Hey collectors, welcome to Star Wars Collected. I'm Jonathan. If you're new here, I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing. If you've been here before or you're excited about Star Wars Celebration, I hope you leave me a like, because what I have for you guys today are all the information bits that you need to know about Star Wars Celebration. I have all of my tips as well, so let's go ahead and get started. I have all my notes here on my laptop, so you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm gonna be glancing down here a lot, but I need to give you guys all the information I can, and I wanna make sure it's completely accurate. So I have a combination of things to expect from Celebration, things that are kind of official from the Celebration website, or things that we've collected, little bits of knowledge, as well as tips and tricks that I've learned from all of my trips to Celebration. So this is my third consecutive trip to Star Wars Celebration. I was at Chicago in 2019 with my wife and my friend, and then I went to Anaheim last year solo, and then I'll be at the Europe London version of it, of course, with you guys here in a couple weeks. And of course, if you're not joining, we'll try to bring you as much as we can right from here, and that way you can kind of feel like you're there as well. So if you haven't been before, you're going to be experiencing everything Star Wars. It is an amazing weekend. It is a great time, and everything I'm about to go over is going to help make sure that it really is a great time for you. Also, I'm going to probably say this multiple times throughout the video. If you see me out there, say hi to me. I had so much fun in Anaheim meeting so many of you and taking a photo with you. So if you recognize me, I'm going to be about 6'7". I'm going to be wearing an Imperial officer cap and probably a Star Wars t-shirt. That was going to be kind of expected, but I'll probably be the only one who looks exactly like me. So come up, say hi. I'd love to take a photo with you, but let's go ahead and hop into it here. So Star Wars Celebration is being held in April 7th through the 10th. It's 4-day long, and it is occurring over the Easter weekend, which might cause some disruption. So if there's a place that you're thinking about going to eat, or there's a certain way you're going to travel, double check that all that stuff is still the same, because of it being a holiday weekend, some of those things might have changed a little bit. It's going to be held at the Excel in London. From what I understand, there's not a ton to do around that area. I'm sure people that are familiar with the area would know better than myself. It's kind of over there, and then kind of other things you might be interested in doing when you're in London are kind of elsewhere in the city. I highly recommend you use public transportation. Try to use the tube when you can. Buses do run 24 hours a day though, but again, with it being a holiday weekend, some of these things like the train, there could be some construction going on, some maintenance, things like that. A lot of times places like to use holiday weekends for things like that. So be careful with what you're doing there. Taxi system there and the Uber system there, quite a bit more expensive than if you're from the States, what you're used to here. So yeah, if possible, try to use public transportation, see if you can use the tube. If you are using the tube, the Prince Regent DLR station seems to be the nearest one to the Excel London. And I would make sure you familiarize yourself with the best way to get there, the time you'd like to arrive, so that you're not trying to figure that out, you know, on the day or the day before. Go ahead and kind of map out your course. How am I going to get where I want to go? Which end of the hall am I trying to enter at? What is going to make sure that I get there at the time that I want to get there? The hours for Star Wars Celebration are 10 to 7 on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday being the last day, it's 10 to 5, so it's 2 hours shorter on the other end. There is not a strong reason to start lining up at 6 a.m. Unless there's just like that one collectible or experience that you think you can race to and get there before anyone else can if you show up early. However, it was announced that if you are there before 8 o'clock, you're not going to be allowed to queue inside. You're not even really allowed on the grounds. They're going to ask you to leave. So really, there's not a strong reason to get there before 8 a.m. But like I said, the hall itself doesn't open until 10 a.m. As for tickets, as of recording right now, you can still purchase 4-day kids tickets. You can get adult tickets for Friday and Saturday, and kids tickets, individual tickets for Friday, Saturday, and Monday. Lyte.com, L-Y-T-E, is the only official way to transfer badges. Be careful about buying them from someone else, because the experience is highly tied to your email and being able to access the app, which is also kind of tied to your email, and it can be really difficult to get the most out of Celebration if you don't have access to that same email account. I've also seen some scams in the past, so be very careful if you try to buy it outside of Lyte.com. But otherwise, you know, maybe you are interested in going Friday and Saturday, and those tickets are still available as of the time I'm recording this right now. Badges, you can go ahead and activate your badge at swce23.com/activate. I've gotten my badge. I've seen plenty of posts online of people who have. I've seen plenty who haven't. My guess is that if you don't receive your badge before the time that it starts, you'll be able to go to Will Call and get it there. We'll talk about Will Call here in a moment. Each day and ticket style has a different piece of artwork on the front, so there's a lot of different badges. You might see some different badges online, but everything kind of has its own unique art style, and they really did a really cool job with the art style this year. On the back of your badge, you're going to find the show hours, again 10 to 7 on Friday, Saturday to Sunday, and 10 to 5 on Monday. You're also going to see a QR code with your badge ID number underneath. When I went to scan it on my iPhone, it actually tried to like call it. It turned it into a phone number, but I just entered the number that was underneath the QR code manually on swce23.com/activate. I would activate it as soon as you can, as soon as you get it, to make sure that there's no issues, and if there are issues, you'll have a little bit of extra time then to work those out. If you end up having to pick up your badge at will call, if it doesn't come in time, it's at N6 of the North Event Hall and is open Thursdays from 2 to 8, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the actual days of the con, from 8 to 6:30, and Monday 8 to 4. I can't imagine someone showing up at 4 o'clock for their badge to enjoy 1 hour of Star Wars Celebration, but they are open for you if that is you. There is an app for Star Wars Celebration. There has been the last few years, every year that I've gone. Varying levels of success with that app, but you can download that app right now at swce23.com/mobile. It'll allow you to navigate the show floor. You can discover the panels that are available. You'll be able to search exhibitors. You can build a favorites list of exhibitors and guests and show features, and you can see the guest list of who's all going to be there. So you can kind of try to plan your trip within the app, which is nice. Record all that information elsewhere too. There have been some issues with the apps in previous cons where they no longer sign in, or the Wi-Fi goes down, something of that nature. So it's not a bad tool to use, but make sure you have some sort of backup that's just for you, either elsewhere in your phone or on a piece of paper, something like that. But it's very important that you download the app and that it's working and all that stuff for you to get the most out of Celebration. It depends on each year as to how much of the experience is tied to the app, but I think it's usually a pretty important part. Art is a big part of Star Wars Celebration, and they released a bunch of previews of what this art could look like a couple months ago. That art show is now closed at this point. There was sort of like a pre-order online, that's closed, but there will be an amazing art show at Star Wars Celebration, and you'll be able to buy art there that you didn't even see online. Any art that was available for pre-order online but didn't sell out, you'll also be able to buy that at the store. It's always a really cool place to see some original art, and like I said, this year they've put it next to the kind of fan costume area from what I can able to gather, so it's kind of a cool juxtaposition. Photos and autographs. I think this maybe is where I see the most questions. The most questions I've gotten is about the photos and autograph sections. In 2019, I did a fair amount of these. It was my first celebration, and I thought it was kind of a cool opportunity. Last year, I only did Ewan McGregor, and then this year I don't think I'm going to do any. And part of that is just because they've gotten really, really expensive. But let's run down some other things here. So if you're interested in securing a photograph or autograph, as of right now, much like last time in 2022, Ewan McGregor is the first person who has sold out for individuals, is sold out for combinations with Christensen, as well as Blair, who played young Leia. So I don't think there's a way right now to get anything from Ewan McGregor, but everyone else is out there and available. I'll put the URL down here at the bottom where you can check it out of a full listing of what's available. Keep in mind that Official Picks will schedule your autograph times for you, and they may fall during a panel you're really interested in attending. Maybe they'll change it for you, maybe they can't. It's just going to depend on availability and how willing they are to change that. There's also a fair amount this year that I don't actually remember seeing at the past. It just says while at table, which means that they're not so much scheduled to be there at a specific time, or you're not scheduled to be there at a specific time, and that you can just sort of wait in line, and you know, however long that line is and how long it takes is how that becomes your appointment time, basically. So that's kind of nice. That gives you maybe a little bit more freedom with those people. That tends to be on people who are going to be a little less popular. You know, if it's Hayden Christensen or something like that, I think you're still pretty rigidly scheduled in there. One thing to keep in mind is that Star Wars Celebration seems to be one of the more expensive places to have these experiences. Now, you know, how many other places are you going to find all these people together? Not very many, but if you are someone who visits cons often, maybe one that's closer to home, consider that this might not be the cheapest place to meet these people or to get their autograph or something like that. But it is something that maybe you add on to your Star Wars Celebration that makes it feel all the more popular. You know, like you come home and it's like, oh, Star Wars Celebration was amazing. I did this, and I got to meet Ewan McGregor. Like, that's a cool kind of like a little icing on top. But go ahead and maybe check the local con circuit near you, and maybe some of these same people that will be at Star Wars Celebration, maybe you can catch them closer to home, and then you're spending a little bit less time waiting through line, because that is sort of like the biggest downside to me about the autographs and the photos, is that getting through line can take a really long time, and you might be missing things waiting in line, and that's, you know, that kind of just goes along with a con, but it is definitely a con of a con. One pro though is that if you are an individual and you are gonna get something autographed or something like that, you can go through with another person, which is nice. If you have a spouse with you, or a significant other, or a friend or something like that, you can both go through the line. You're just only gonna get one thing signed, but you know, it's kind of a cool opportunity for a buddy of yours, or maybe you're the buddy, to be able to get up close and maybe exchange pleasantries with somebody. So that's pretty cool. The other thing is about photographs. People who haven't done this before, photographs are not meet and greets. It's not going to be, you know, you walk up to, you know, D. Bradley Baker and you get to have him run through all the voice acting that he's ever done and every single character. You're literally going to be walking in, you say hello to the people, you get in position, you turn to the camera, smile, you're out. It is a 15-second, maybe 30-second type interaction. It is not long. So you're not gonna be making a new best friend that day. Just keep that in mind, temper that expectation that that's not really how it works. Panels, I actually just got my panel allocation or winning or whatever today. I got into the Lucasfilm showcase panel, which was the one I think was probably the most excited about, so I'm really excited about that. Congratulations to those of you who got into any panels, into panels that you wanted, and my condolences if you didn't get into any of the panels that you wanted to or didn't get into any panels. That can be a bummer. But don't be too upset if you don't get into the panels. There's still a ton of things to do there. In the past, sometimes you've been able to have morning of opportunities. Sometimes there's been an opportunity to do a standby queue and get in there as well. But there's just no guarantee that you're going to get in no matter where you are in that line. If they're full, they're full. If they can accommodate some extra people and they decide to do a queue, they may. We don't really know that though until we get in there. Other than the big panels for the day though, panels are first come, first serve. So you don't need to have any sort of extra allocation or pass, anything of that nature. Some years and some panels, the rooms are cleared after a panel and others they aren't. So it's kind of hard to know, you know, if there's a panel that you really want to get into back to back, you might end up being kicked out and having to get into the back of the line and maybe you don't get back into that panel. Other times you're able just to sit there and chill and they will let the group in after that, after everyone's left. So you might want to check with the volunteer near the door when you go into the first panel, or if you're there earlier in the day and you walk past the room, maybe check with them and just say, hey, I'm interested in coming back for this panel later. Can you tell me if they're clearing the room in between panels? Because like I said, it might be worth, if there's a panel that you really want to go to that you think might be popular, it might be worth attending the one before that if you find out they're not clearing the room. If there's two that you really want to go to, but you want to go to the second one more and they are clearing the room in between and you think it's going to be popular, it might be worth skipping the first one so that you can be in line for the second one. It's a little tricky. Check with the volunteers that are there on staff. Keep in mind again that they are volunteers, they're not necessarily the word of God, so be nice to them if they end up being wrong or something like that. Try not to hold all your hopes on certain things like panels. The live stage is back again this year with a lot of interviews. There's a certain actor that you are just like, it would make your life to see them. You might be able to see them on the Star Wars live stage. And the live stage is completely free. It's open the entire day. And actually it is a great place to just go and hang out. If you're just having a little bit of downtime, if you're like in between panels or you don't want to walk the floor, just going over there, there's always something going on. There's been an announcement earlier and it's a public facing trailer or something like that. They will tend to share that type of content on the screens in there. What they're not going to do is they're not going to show you something that was exclusive for a panel. That's the only downside. In the past, they used to actually live stream kind of all of Star Wars Celebration, including the panels, on YouTube. It was fantastic. So even if you didn't attend, you got a lot out of it. Last year, though, they didn't do that. So I don't know what they're doing this year, but if you follow Star Wars Collected on Instagram and on YouTube, I will do my best job to bring you all the information that I can. Talking more about panels, there's nothing in there that won't eventually make it out to the rest of the world. So even if there's exclusive behind the scenes stuff, you know, a lot of times it leaks kind of on YouTube right after that. But eventually you're gonna see that stuff in other trailers, or you'll see the actual series or movie or something like that. I also actually put down at least 2 panels during every little block. And if some panels overlap, I'll still put both of them on my calendar, because you just never know what's going to happen. You know, you might have a panel in mind, but then you get stuck in a line for something else, or you know, you get immersed in something, or photo and autograph sessions notoriously go longer than they're supposed to. Or maybe you start up a conversation with a new friend, you make a new Star Wars friend, that would be fantastic, right? So maybe you missed the beginning of one panel and you're like, oh gosh, I missed it, but you know, there's another cool one that was kind of my second choice that starts in a half hour. I'll go ahead and pop in line for that. Last year, there was this amazing Mando experience that came out of absolutely nowhere. No one was expecting it. There's a whole video I have walk around on that. You can check that on my YouTube channel. It was perhaps the best single display of Star Wars props and things like that I've ever seen in my life. But we're gonna be in England, and so so much of Star Wars is done in England. So, you know, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but there's a possibility that something for Andor or something like that could be popping up like that. It'd be a huge surprise. I'd be super excited if it did. So that's everything that I think you kind of need to know as far as the ground rules and kind of how Celebration works and things like that. But let's get into tips for Celebration. Like I said, this is my 3rd Celebration. I've been to other cons as well, so I've kind of put together what my best practices are, and I think if you follow these, you're gonna have a fantastic time. So first one, an obvious one, but does get missed sometime, bring your badges. In Chicago, I felt like you barely didn't need your badge. You could just sort of like walk on and off, but you know, you don't want to get caught without your badge, and without your badge, you might get turned away and things like that. So don't leave your badge at home. It would be a huge pain, so make sure you pack that as if it was your passport. Comfortable shoes. All right, guys, this isn't a fashion contest, okay? So your most comfortable sneakers, that's what I recommend you bring, and just comfort overall. You know, if you have a couple pairs of jeans that are those your best ones, then like wear those and be comfortable, because it's a lot of sitting and standing and walking around and things like that. And you know, if you're in cosplay, that's something else, but don't worry too much. Let's talk about food. So definitely bring snacks. Food is available at the Excel London Center, but it's gonna be really expensive, probably not gonna taste great. You're gonna get stuck in a long line, and there's not a lot of great options outside of that area from what I've read. You know, there's I think some convenience stores nearby, so maybe you can pull something from that, maybe grab that on your way in even. You don't want to like, you know, be in the middle of a line and you're just like, man, if I'm Lisa, I'm gonna pass out. Like, that's not the scenario that you want to have a great celebration with. So make sure you bring lots of snacks. Dress in layers. You never know with London weather, all right? I've been to England a couple times, and it changes pretty quickly. It's usually pretty rainy during this time. However, panel rooms can be very cold, and the floor can also get very warm. So dress in layers so that way you can kind of convert yourself throughout the day, so that way you stay comfortable. You're gonna wanna bring a lanyard for your badge. Chicago, they had a bunch of lanyards when you first walked in. I was kind of expecting them to have that again last time, and they didn't. So bring a lanyard, maybe bring 2 in case one breaks, because having that badge around your neck is gonna just make your life a little bit easier. Bringing something like hand sanitizer is a good idea. There's gonna be a lot of people there. Con flu is like a real thing where people kind of all get together and they come home and feel a little sluggish afterwards. So it's a good idea to keep your hands clean, things of that nature. This is a big one, and I preached this one last year and it really worked out well for me. So bring small unlined note cards and a Sharpie. So you never know who you're gonna run into out on the floor. You might get a cool opportunity to meet someone in passing, and you're gonna wanna get their autograph. For me, my favorite story from last year out of meeting all of you guys was meeting Doug Chang. He's definitely like a big hero of mine, kind of one of the first people that I understood that like an art director, a creative director was a job, and that's what I am professionally. I'm a creative director. It was really cool to meet him, and I got to meet him in this really kind of cool 150 people, intimate sort of Q&A meet and greet. And it was him and a handful of other ILM artists. And at the end, you get the opportunity then to go up and actually meet them in person, and they can sign things. Well, I had followed my rule, and I had gone and gotten these like little note card type things, and I got a Sharpie, and no one around me had done anything like that. So most of them had like a pen or something like that on them, but I'm standing there and I'm just like dealing out my note cards to all my new friends around me, because, you know, it's a cool opportunity. You get to get these people's signatures, and it's, you know, they're not paying for them or anything like that, but they didn't have anything on them that would make sense to sign. So definitely make sure you bring small unlined note cards, something sturdy, or like a journal that you wouldn't mind like cutting maybe the signature out of someday. So at some point I'm going to take the picture that I have of myself with Doug Chang and his signature, and maybe my favorite piece of artwork from him or something like that, put that in a frame and have a really cool, exclusive, nice piece, all because I brought a little note card with me. Luggage. So if you're coming from the US, at least, if you're traveling internationally, most of the time that means you're going to get a free checked bag as part of that trip. It's not a bad idea to bring that as empty as you possibly can, so that way if you do end up getting some things at the celebration, you'll be able to bring it all home and then won't have to ship things home. One of my biggest recommendations though is to bring like a big nylon bag or some kind of like big trash bag, like a big black trash bag, something like that. Something that's like really sturdy but also just completely collapses up into basically nothing. In 2019, I bought this super cool Gentle Giant Darth Maul like spider statue, and the box was don't know, about yay big, maybe yay wide. And it was amazing, but I had to like carry it around in this plastic bag like the entire day because it was like the first thing I bought. So having a bag with some handles or some straps or something like that would have really saved me that day. Backpacks are great too. You're gonna find me with a backpack the whole time I'm there. But again, try to keep it fairly empty if you can, because that's a great place to then put the things that you buy while you're there. So, you know, bring snacks, figure out a way to bring another layer or two, but try to keep your packing fairly minimal on the day. And just leave room in your suitcase as well. So just keep in mind that like you can bring nearly empty bags and bring them back. And if you don't fill them, that's great. Your wallet will thank you. But it's an opportunity that you don't want to mess up. You don't want to have to ship the stuff home if you don't have to. That'd be very expensive, especially if you're traveling internationally. Poster tube or art book or photo albums. If you go to a panel, 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you a poster of some sort. You might even go to some other minor things throughout Star Wars Celebration where they hand you some posters. If you're into artwork and things like that, you're going to find a great opportunity to buy artwork, not only in the like official art store, but vendors that are just out on the floor who are selling art. And you're going to want to get those home in good shape. And a poster tube is roughly 20 to 30 bucks. It's plastic. It collapses. It has a strap on it. Honestly, it looks very Star Warsy. And it's a great way to make sure that that stuff makes it all home. If you're doing autographs and things like that, you're going to want to make sure that after they've signed it, it is completely dry, and then slide that into some kind of photo album that is sturdy so that you can put that in your backpack and that doesn't get all screwed up. Things that just are gonna keep things rigid, either nice and rolled up so that they don't get bent up, or something that's gonna be between 2 flat, hard pieces. Another tip I have for autographs is to bring your own prints. So they are going to supply you with a photo print. I think they're usually about an 8x10, but you might not love the options that they give you. I've had one, I think it was D. Bradley Baker, where my appointment with him was later in the day and the art that they had left was kind of goofy. So I ended up getting a signature still, but it's definitely not on a piece that I would have chosen. While they'll supply you with one, I highly recommend finding like a picture online that you really, really like and going to your local CVS, Walgreens, whatever you feel comfortable with, and getting that printed. It is not expensive. It is like $4 or $5, maybe $10 at the most. There's actually usually discount codes for all that stuff. All right, very important. Next would be an extra battery for your phone. You are going to be using your phone for the app. You're going to be using your phone maybe to take photos. You're going to be using your app to maybe take videos as well, and also communicate all the cool things that you're seeing. You know, you're going to be sharing stuff on social media and all that stuff. You're going to get stuck in lines, and I highly recommend you talk to people around you, but you're going to want to, you know, bury your head in your phone every once in a while. And you're not going to want to go and sit by a wall for an hour while it charges. So make sure you bring an extra battery pack for your phone. For sure, do not sleep on fan displays. Fan displays are sometimes some of the coolest things that are there. You are going to see some really cool costumes. You're going to see some really cool droids that people like hand make. Every single droid you can think of. I've got a video of my walk around of the droid builder room from last one. You're going to get an opportunity to see something like that, I'm sure, in London, so make sure you check it out. But the costumes are amazing. I think, like I said, this year it is next to the art section, which I think is a great position for it. So make sure you wander over there and check that out. And if you hear anything about a special room off somewhere else with droids in it or something like that, make sure you go there as well. Also, really take the opportunity to look at merchandise that you've been considering purchasing, even if you're not going to purchase it there. Star Wars Celebration is not necessarily the most economical place to buy a lot of these collectibles, but I'm sure there's plenty of things that you've seen online and you're like, man, I think that looks really cool, but I just don't know. You know, really take the time to like get in close, look at it from all the angles if someone has it on display, and really try to make your informed decision based off that. This is primarily a collecting channel, and we've all, you know, bought things that then comes and it's just not what we expected it to be. And we've done the opposite too, where you buy something and it comes in, you're like, this thing is amazing. Why are people not like loving this, or why are they not talking about it like crazy? So it is a great place for me to be able to go and really absorb in some of these things that I've been thinking about, and kind of make a final decision on whether that's something I'm going to keep on my purchase list or not. Okay guys, home stretch here. Let's talk about things to expect and things to not expect. Let's start with the latter. Don't expect your dream projects to be announced. The Star Wars Celebration usually has a couple announcements here and there, but it is unlikely that they're going to announce that like perfect project that you've just been wanting for so long, and that if they don't, you have a ruined celebration. Just don't put that expectation out there. Don't expect unannounced guests. Don't expect Harrison Ford to like walk in, or Mark Hamill to walk in, or something like that. If it happens, that's great, but don't go in with the expectation that they're going to be there. Don't expect full episodes to be streamed. So in the past, they would occasionally show you a full episode of something, but anymore, they don't really tend to do that. There's just too much too much downside to things leaking and things of that nature. So don't expect full episodes of an animated series or a show or something like that to be streamed for you in advance, unless it's maybe something kind of more minor, like if they do another web series or something like that, you might see something like that. Don't expect to get into every or any panel or even have the time to get into every panel. So obviously the big ones have already kind of been spoken for, but the ones that are later in the day, you know, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people going to different ones. Timing can be an issue. They're too far apart, things of that nature. So go for the ones that you really, really love. Have some other ones that you like to see, but don't make all of your expectations on Star Wars Celebration being getting in these 4 panels back to back that are all over the place. You're probably not gonna have a good time just trying to get to them. It's probably gonna be adding too much pressure to it. Don't expect to get exclusive merchandise. Often at Star Wars Celebration, there are exclusive merchandise from people like Funko Pops, and they are coveted and they're hard to come by and they're hard to get. If you get them, that's great, but don't expect to get them. One thing I will say about that though is that some places hold back merchandise. Certain places have a set amount for Friday, for Saturday, for Sunday, for Monday. So if you go Friday and they are out, try again Saturday, try again Sunday, try again Monday. Some places do that, some don't. It's gonna be up to the vendor. Do expect a lot of merchandise. Some rare, but not always a great price. But there's gonna be tons of stuff there. It doesn't really matter what you collect, vintage stuff, current Hasbro stuff, high-end stuff, Hot Toys, Sideshow. You're gonna find master replica stuff there. Almost everything you've ever thought of is gonna have some sort of representation there. It's a lot of merchandise, and as a collector, I love seeing all that. But beyond that, like, you're gonna see cell phone cases, you're gonna see t-shirts, you're gonna see water bottles, you're gonna see erasers, you're gonna see like literally anything they can slap a logo on, you're gonna see it there, which is cool if that's what you're into. You know, you're gonna find whatever product is like your thing, there's probably gonna be some representation there, and you're gonna find something, which is really cool. Do expect amazing cosplay. Oh my gosh, like, these people are at costume level stuff. You know, sometimes there's even more detail in the cosplays than there are in the original costumes. You know, there's gonna be great quality. You're gonna have people who are really into their characters, so they're gonna be in character, which is super cool. And they're gonna be excited that you're excited. So like, I would say that for all of Star Wars Celebration, this is your time to be just super excited and nerdy about Star Wars Celebration, and to just be really generous with the things that you're saying. Give people that pat on the back when they, you know, have a cosplay of your favorite character, because if you were in that situation, that's exactly what you would want. And if you know the amount of work that they put into this stuff, either making it or kind of developing their character, or getting it there and putting it on that morning, like, it all just takes a lot of work. Photos are kind of expected when you're out there. I mean, I know a lot of people say, like, you know, ask the cosplayer if you're okay with having their photo taken. You know, if they seem like overly shy, or they're like kind of off in the corner, like on their phone, you know, maybe then, like, you know, say like, hey, would you mind if I take your photo real quick? If they're out and about though, like in the middle of the floor, they're kind of expecting you to take their photo and do a little bit of video. I think that's pretty much okay. But just make sure you don't touch them or their work without permission. So the touching them part is just a personal boundary type thing. Maybe some people are cool with it, maybe they aren't. The things that they're wearing, you know, if they have certain kind of armor and things like that, and the paint is kind of finicky on it, or they have a costume with some soft parts on it, some of that stuff can just be a little bit more fragile. So just make sure you ask people before you actually like touch them. Make sure you have their permission. Another thing to expect is that you will absolutely see famous people, probably someone you're really excited about. And what I recommend you do is, you know, like I said, they kind of publish the list of who's going to be on the live stage when, but when you're on the floor, just kind of like listen. And when you maybe hear like a big roar, if you're not in the middle of something, it might be a great time to go over to the live stage and see who just came up. Also highly recommend and do expect to strike up conversations with people, even if you're nervous about it. You know, I'm like a more introverted person, even though I'm like unabashedly nuts about Star Wars. And if you come up to me, there's nothing that's more exciting to me than like for you to come to me and for you to talk about Star Wars, or say that you watched my channel or saw this video or something like that. It's my like literally favorite thing at Celebration. People are all there because they love what you love. So you immediately know you have something in common with the other person standing in line with you. You know, you're both there because you super love Star Wars and you connect with it. And so finding a connection with another person is super easy. You can ask them like what they're excited about for Celebration, whether they've been to ones before. You know, do they do any cosplaying? What's their favorite movie? What's something they've done that they really like? Maybe what they collect. You know, that's something that I always like to ask people about. You know, what do you collect? You literally can't go wrong. So even if you're a shy private person, try to like just put your head up every once in a while and strike up a conversation with someone in line, because you're gonna spend a lot of time in line, so you might as well make it a good fun time. You're also gonna expect to find new vendors and merchandise. I try to keep a pretty good finger on what's going on out there, but every single time I go to Celebration, I see something that I haven't heard about, something that slipped under my radar, whether that's a new vendor that I'm unfamiliar with, or it is a piece of merchandise that, you know, was announced that I kind of forgot about or something like that, or is really old, maybe something that before I started collecting. So it's a fantastic opportunity to kind of learn about new merchandise and new products, things like that, new vendors. Do expect good vibes. It's all Star Wars. You know, there's going to be some negativity in the Star Wars community at times. I find that the Star Wars collecting community is actually a pretty great, chill group. And we really try to like celebrate the things that we get with one another. But at Star Wars Celebration, that tends to be the people who are the most upbeat about Star Wars. Doesn't mean you have to like everything about Star Wars, but there doesn't tend to be the people who are just there to kind of poo-poo on everything in there. So it's good vibes. It's one of the better Star Wars vibes places you can be. And this is a big one, and I said this last year as well. I would expect to be moved emotionally. It's just a really cool weekend, and you know, something will tend to move you, whether it's like turn all the lights off in the celebration stage and everyone's lightsabers going, or you know, you see a favorite character of yours being cosplayed that's just like, oh, it's so real, or you see an actor that maybe you grew up watching, or that's your favorite character, and you see them, and it's just really cool. You know, there's a really cool feeling of community when you're there, and excitement and things of that nature. So don't not expect to be moved emotionally. I always am. Like I keep talking about last year, I was just so moved that so many of you took the time out of your celebration to just come up to me and say, hey, I watched Star Wars Collected, you know, I watched your video on Celebration, and I just want to say hi, and I loved like taking selfies with all of you guys. I mean, literally my favorite thing from that celebration. So then that really moved me, so I love that. All right, guys, it's been a long one. Thank you for reaching all the way at the end here, but if you follow these tips, I think you're gonna have a wonderful Star Wars celebration. They have served me very well at my last two celebrations, and I'm very excited to be there with all of you guys that are going, and for those of you who aren't, to bring you as much of it as I can. Which reminds me, make sure you follow me on Instagram, because I will probably be putting out live stuff as much as I can throughout all of that. New merchandise coming out, anything I learned from a panel, I will share with you guys as fast as I possibly can. But let's hop down in the comments. Any questions that you have or comments about Star Wars Celebration, throw them down there. I will do my very best to find you an answer. We also have a great community already here on this channel, so there's a good chance someone else might swoop in and answer that question for you. But yeah, any questions you have going into Star Wars Celebration, go ahead and hop down in the comments, ask it. I will find you an answer to the best of my ability. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. And if you enjoyed videos about Star Wars, collecting Star Wars, cosplay, helmets, anything in that realm, make sure you follow along, because we have new content here all the time. All right, guys, that's the end of it. See ya.